So we are continuing in chapter 9. We started it by reading about the promise that God made to never flood the earth and the seal of the promise of the rainbow. But this brings us to the second part of chapter 9, which is a lesson I have carried in my heart for many years that I learned young about dealing with leadership. And so we see that Noah and his family are now cultivating the land. They've become farmers. Along with farming comes harvest. And with harvest of grapes, there often comes wine. And so Noah, for what seems to be the first time, gets drunk. And as wine and strong spirits are so apt to do, he is made a fool in his drunkenness and ends up naked in his tent, passed out, right? So when his son Ham discovers his nakedness, he chooses the wrong path. Instead of trying to cover his father, he decides to mock him. He runs to tell his siblings all about his father's shortcomings. And I love what my favorite commentary, Matthew Henry, says. He says, "It is very wrong to publish the faults of any, especially of parents," substitute the word leaders, "whom it is our duty to honor." And I think about this action by Ham, and the more I actually dig into it and think about it, the more I understand how truly terrible it is. I mean, God had literally just wiped out the world for how sinful it had become. But the faithfulness of Noah, his father, is what saved Ham. Ham was still alive and breathing because of this man. And yet, as soon as he made a mistake, his first reaction was to mock him, publish his faults to everyone around him, and be pridefully arrogant about his ways. We can quickly forget that we have been saved by grace and we needed those around us to show us some mercy and grace. And Ham had just been spared, given a second chance because of Noah, and yet he was prideful and wanted to broadcast his father's weakest moment. So we read on and we find the correct response from his two brothers, who quickly went in and, as respectfully as they possibly could, they tried to cover the nakedness of their father. You see, their respect for him, who he was, what he had done for them, the position he held in their lives, prompted a response of care, compassion, respect, and mercy. I heard this taught many years ago when I was very young in the ministry, how we should be quick to cover the nakedness of our elders and our leaders. Now, let me clarify, this does not mean that our leaders should be able to have blatantly sinful lives and we cover for them. Now, if there's someone that is having a major problem, confrontation is needed, things are needed to be handled, but they need to be handled with respect and honor and grace, correct? Okay, so we're not saying that people should be living blatantly open, sinful lives and we cover for them. Not talking about that, but instead, it means that when we do see the flaws and weaknesses of those in authority over us, or our parents, or our teachers, our pastors, bosses, that we actually help cover those weaknesses with grace and kindness and do our best to honor them despite their small failures. Now, it doesn't mean that we can't keep them accountable and have tough conversations, but it doesn't mean that we advertise to the world and talk about how terrible they are. You see, no one is perfect, including those in authority over us. Our pastors, me, I'm not perfect. They will have shortcomings as you do, just as we do. And when those show, we have to respond like Shem and Japheth. In the end, we actually even see that Ham is cursed through his son Canaan. Now, when you first read this, you may feel it's a little unfair to Canaan, as he wasn't the one that committed the sin. But too often, the son of a father often inherits the wicked dispositions and imitates their father's wicked ways unless they have done something to cut ties and curve behaviors on purpose, i.e., gave their heart to Jesus, changed their life. It's safe to assume that Canaan had already been acting just like his father, and Noah recognized that it had been transferred to another generation. I guarantee this wasn't the first time that Noah dealt with Ham or dealt with Canaan. He had seen these behaviors, and this was it. He said, nope, I realize now this is wicked, and I want to say something about it. So I do not believe it was the first time that Noah was recognizing this wickedness in his son and his grandson's heart. At the same time, we also see that he pronounces a blessing onto his two other sons who handled the situation correctly. Ham and Japheth are blessed in this passage. Why? Because they handled it the correct way. And today, as you read this, I encourage you to search your heart. Are you giving grace and honor to those in authority over you? Or are you waiting, sitting in a trap, waiting to expose every flaw you see? This is a really hard place to be, that we all find ourselves in every day, because we expect those in authority to, be perfect. Sometimes I think we put unreal expectations on our leadership, and that can be a very hard position for them to be in. And it can be a really hard position for us to be in. And so I want to encourage us to take a conscious effort to choose to try to cover the nakedness of those around you. It's not easy, but with the help of the Holy Spirit, you are able to choose grace and honor instead of disrespect and haughtiness. Now, as I close, I want to make sure we were reminded, we're not talking about blatant sin or things that are occurring patterns that may need to be confronted. There's a correct way to handle those in the right manner, and the Bible actually speaks about that. So if you don't know how to handle confrontation in the biblical manner, then find out what it says about it. But for the most part, if you see that someone in authority or leadership have messed up, don't go advertise it to everyone. Instead, give grace, give mercy, and pray for them. Thanks for joining us. We'll dive into chapter 10 next time.